Welcome back, everybody. Going to continue with our smart home there, and it just occurred to me that I've been going through a lot of this code, and some of you don't really know even how to structure the code. So we're going to start doing a little bit more of that. What I'm looking at right here, our next project is going to be Project 6.2 button. There are two buttons to switch the color of the atmosphere lamp, the RGB. We call that. I guess they're calling that the atmosphere lamp now. So that's this little RGB lamp on the side, and they want to use these two push buttons to control this lamp. So what happens is, let's get that out of the way. So if I highlight, um, if I highlight all of this code like this, and it's a lot of code, right? If I highlight all of this code and then I paste it onto this other page over here, this is how it all kind of turns out. It looks like there's no structure whatsoever. It's very, very kind of confusing. Looks like a pain. So what I'm going to do, we're going to take a couple minutes and decode all of this against what we have over here on the other side. So we're just going to add fruit, and then we have an integer and a void function, or a setup function rather, a loop function. I'll put a little bit more space in there. That way we can tell that we're separating things out. There's a loop function. We have a switch case, which is probably nested in, yeah. We have a color wipe function. That's our last thing. So we got a few things that are all kind of separated out. So let's start going back through all of that. Start at the top, define button 1 pinned at 26, button 2 pinned at 27. That looks normal. Okay, include the Adafruit NeoPixel library, and then if def, we'll look that up later. This AVR thing, include AVR power.h required for 16 megahertz Adafruit trinket, and if. So we'll have to figure out what that if statement, that style of an if statement does, but we'll go back into the fundamentals and we'll look up that pound sign and some things like that in the future. But right now, let's just take it for what it is. And so let's define this pin 26, and yeah, this says that this is supposed to be, this is where stuff starts getting a little out of control, because not everything copy and pasted over the right way. And so then let's X that and paste that over there. So we got 26 is NeoPixel data pin, and 4 is the number of NeoPixels, and then we have our Adafruit statement right here. That looks good. Integer button count equals 0. Counter for button presses. Great. And now we're getting into our setup function. So for our setup function first, let's just space everything out a little bit and indent everything. I don't know, it's kind of a, doesn't matter so much here, but I like my stuff to look kind of like that. So let's see, what do we have here? Void setup, we have serial begin. We use that so we can open up the serial port and communicate with serial port. Pin mode button 1 is an input, pin mode button 2 is an input. Okay, those are declared. If defined, AVR tiny, and so if this is true and if this is true, then clock preset scale clock div 1. What does all that mean? Don't really know yet. Don't really know yet. We'll find out later. Then we have strip begin, strip show. So let's see here. Strip begin. It's an instance method called on that strip. And a show method called on the strip, and the brightness method turned on set brightness max 255. That all looks good. So now we're going to get into our loop function, and we're only concerned with like this big area right here. So at this button 2 increment handling note, we're going to space that a little bit because we only want to work on this area in here. So I'm going to back this up, and I'll put that because I like my stuff written that way. And we're going to space everything out, and this, I want this to go up here. So I'm going to X that and paste that into there. Okay, so now we have our if statement. Oops. That didn't do what I wanted it to. Okay. And that's our debounce delay. And then we're going to nest another if statement in there. X. Okay. And within just okay. And then we got a while statement that's inside the if statement. And I want this up here. So put a little space there. There. And I'm just putting tabs in there. Okay. Actually, I don't want to. Okay, I want to move that up here. And this is going up here. That's going to go up there. How do I know all this stuff? I don't know if it's exactly how it's going to work. I'm just kind of interpreting. Right now, I'm just structuring everything. I'm not trying to do anything specific. I'm just trying to structure. Tab. But then here in a minute we'll go back through it and okay, so there's a close. That's the close for our if statement right there, right? And now this serial is still going to fit under. Let's see, where's this exit loop? Okay, button state 0, exit the loop. Now let me make sure I haven't really been looking at, so we got our void loop, open statement, or open curly brace, Boolean, button 1, value, digital read, the hardware button 1, Boolean, button 2, value equals digital read, the button 2. Okay, and then we have our button 1 decrement handling. If button value 1 is equal to 0 if the button is pressed, then delay 10 milliseconds, and if the button value of 1 is equal to 0, confirming the button press, Boolean button state equals 1 button state. So we're declaring a Boolean, looks like, and we're naming it button state, and we're saying that equals 1. And for the duration of the button state equaling 1, for as long as it is 1, it's waiting for a release. I have mine spaced a little bit different, but while, then the Boolean button value says button state, but so we're creating another Boolean, and we're calling it button value, and we're assigning it the digital read 1. And then if button value is equal to the number 1, if the button is released, then the button counter decrements. Decrement the button counter. And then if the button count is greater than or is less than or equal to 0, change the button count to 0. And what does that do? That means, like, in case you accidentally decrement by 5 or something for whatever reason, it's just going to set it back to 0, so you can't go into the negative. Serial print line button count, and then it's going to print the button count and the button state. Then it's going to set the button state back to 0 so it can exit the loop. Now, what do we do with these things? We find out where they go. Like, this is married to this if statement right here, right? And so this one over here, oops, it's tied to that while statement right there. And that's tied to that if statement, and that's tied to that if statement right there. So we're still inside the 1, 2, 3. That closes the limit minimum value of statement right there. Just like that closes that one. So this one closes the Boolean value, button value. Yeah, Boolean button value. So this should probably just be back here. And that's just kind of for the sake of neatness. So that closes that one. These are still inside that if statement up here. That should be right. So, yeah. So if we look up here, we're not all the way finished with the, okay. So that means button 1 is decrement handling. And so now we're getting into button 2, which is another part of the, it's another part of the, it's another part of the update method, update function. So put that up there just to make it look neat. That's the way I like it. Okay, so if, then we hit this delay, and that's a debounce delay. Then below that, it's a nested if statement. And get that out of the way here. And if that happens, then a while statement, and we X. And then another if statement down here. Okay. Sometimes it's hard to tell which ones are supposed to be comments and which ones aren't. But with some experience, you kind of start to, the more you do it, you can kind of tell what's supposed to be what and what's not. Okay. So that's going to close out this if statement. If button count becomes greater or equal to 6, okay, then, and that's still under that if statement. And that's to exit our loop. Oops, I don't want that. There. That's going to close that if statement. That closes our while statement. That closes that if statement. That closes that if statement. And now what next? We have our switch case. So switch on button count. Remember, a lot of people don't really like switch statements, but that's okay. Switch case statements, tab, tab. Now see how many of these we got, how many cases we have. Now these could be, I'm going to change these up just a little bit so you can read them a little bit more logically. Because every switch case statement needs to have a break statement to get out of that case, right? And I want to make sure that we're recognizing that for what it is. Okay, now that's going to go out there. That's going to close this. So, and I would also go as far to say, like, I want to do it this way. Because, yeah, it looked a lot cleaner. It looked a lot more clean before. But I want this to be a little bit more descriptive for people who have never written a switch case statement before. So we're actually doing this part to make it easier for humans to read and understand. And that's what scripted code is anyway. Okay, so now we have all of that done, and we're down to the fill the strip with one color. We're at the end of our, we have one more. Void color wipe. Copy, no, I want to X. Whoops, that's going to go right at the end of this. Okay, and then we got a for loop. And for int I, if I is less than the number of pixels in the strip, then increment I by 1. Okay. This white needs to go up here on case number 6. And technically, these colors should be up here. It makes no sense for them to be after the break statement when, like, this is the color that it actually represents. See what I mean? Once again, for the sake of anybody who is not used to writing code, just kind of showing you we can put some things here and there. These are comments, so the computer's not going to read them, but comments are made for people to read, not computers. So if you don't understand why the comments are in the places where they are at, then you might not get the full meaning out of them. So, like, this is off, and this is red, and this is what it's going to display. Okay, so color wipe, fill, strip with one color. So what do we have here? That all goes in the color wipe. Okay. So these two functions actually copy and pasted in the wrong place as well. So we're going to X out of that. Those need to go inside the for loop right here. That's why this all looks so confusing. Okay, that looks right. I'm going to put a little space in here just to make it easier to read. So, for int I, if I is less than strip number of pixels, increment I, and then, okay, so strip pixel. Remember, this is increment I, but then return the previous value, right? So if you run a for loop and you change this to plus plus I, it will return a different value. We'll check that out later. But for int I, okay, then we're going to set strip pixel color to I in the color. Then we're going to show, update the strip, and then we're going to wait, pause. Okay, and we can switch the color of the atmosphere lamp by clicking 1 and 2. That's our test code, right? So let's run it, see what works and see what doesn't. In the meantime, let me bring up our webcam. Okay. Let's see what happens. Okay. What do we see here? Nothing's happening. Oh, what if we press a button? How about this? We press a button, there's red, there's green, there's blue. It's a yellowish, purple, white, white. So it looks like we've gotten to the top, and now we can decrement all the way back down to off. So there's off. And what did our off, red, green, blue, yellow, magenta, white? That's our color scheme. So we have off, red, green, blue, yellow, magenta, and white. Those are our colors. That's how we do that. So our code works great. All right. So what is coming up next? Next video. Ooh, we're going to control the fan. How cool. We got a little DC fan and we'll control that. We'll learn how to make a small fan, fan blades, use pulse, width, modulation to control the fan speed. So yeah, that's what we'll look at in the next video, controlling the fan. Alright, thanks for watching.